Hello, my name is Julia Murin Lee. I'm a member of the First United Methodist Church in Parkersburg, West Virginia. And as a part of our church's Lenten Devotional series, I've been asked to reflect on the Bible story of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. Now that comes from the book of John, chapter 11, verses 1 through 45. Now some of those verses we'll read, but a lot of them I'll summarize, and I'll offer an analysis along the way. And then at the end of this session, we'll look at two very different paintings, very famous paintings that depict this famous scene from the Bible. Now let's start with verses 1 through 4. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill, so the sisters sent a message to Jesus. "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now, this is Jesus' occasion to be able to raise Lazarus from the dead, because it is important for them to witness that people, although they may be very sick, and if they believe, they will be raised from the dead because of that belief. The sickness of good people, no matter how threatening, doesn't end in death. So it's important that he have witnesses. And so Jesus waits 2 more days before leaving. And then, verses 7 through 10, after this he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and are you going there again?" And Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world, but those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them." Now that's Jesus being metaphorical. He means the light within is the belief. And those who do not believe stumble. But if you believe, you will be able to rise from the dead. And so Jesus and his disciples head toward Bethany, and they learn along the way that Lazarus has already died. He's been in the tomb for 4 days, and Martha comes running out of the house, grieving to Jesus. She says, "If you had been here, you might have saved him." Well, Jesus says to her, verses 23 through 27, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Then Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." And she goes out back to the house, and she tells Mary that the teacher is there, and Mary gets up, and there's a company of Jews who have been in the house with her to comfort her, and they go too. So Mary, Martha, and this group of Jews who've been comforting the family all go to Jesus. He sees them grieving so much, he himself grieves greatly. And then they all, Jesus' disciples, Mary, Martha, and the group of Jews, go up to the cave where Lazarus has been buried. Now, keep this in mind. Lazarus is in a cave that the entrance of which is blocked by a stone, a heavy stone. Does that not sound familiar? This is foreshadowing that we will see Jesus' gravesite looking like this too. So when Jesus tells them to move that stone from the front of the entrance, practical Martha reminds him that there will be a stench since Lazarus has been in there for 4 days. Verses 40 through 45, Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. Well, I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may see and may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and his feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." And many of the Jews who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus said believed in him. And those witnesses were important. One of the messages we can take away from this biblical scripture is that even though it seems God is doing nothing, he may be doing something all along that we have no idea or can imagine. Well, now let's look at two famous paintings that depict this scene, and we'll compare them. First, Rembrandt's The Raising of Lazarus, painted in the early 1630s. Remember Jesus' reference to the light from within that believers show? Well, in this dark cave, we see the person who has that bright light within is Martha, who told Jesus she believed. Yet even Martha is amazed to see her brother rising up from his grave. And Jesus stands tall, lifting his hand up, glorifying God all the while. The company of Jews witness this miracle. And eventually, many of those Jews become believers themselves. Now, let's look at Vincent van Gogh's painting titled The Raising of Lazarus after Rembrandt. Now, this was painted in 1890, 260 years after Rembrandt's painting. We don't see Jesus. He is depicted symbolically through the sun, bringing the healing powers of faith. Van Gogh is focused more on the theme of human suffering. In fact, he's identifying with Lazarus himself. Lazarus has a red beard just like Van Gogh's. Though we may suffer, if we believe, we will rise up from death. That's the message in both these paintings. Two very different ways of focusing on the raising of Lazarus, but one common theme, that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, and those who believe in him won't die, but will live. Now, no matter how it's depicted, the raising of Lazarus from the dead is a powerful message basic to Christianity. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching.